Good evening, everyone. I hope you all are doing great and charge up because today's session is all about the heart of an EV, the battery. Before we begin, quick question for you all. How many of you believe that most EV problems start from the battery? Exactly. And that's why today's topic is not just relevant but critical for everyone looking to build a real career in EV. Welcome to DIYguru and e-mobility careers live EV industry session on EV battery diagnostics, the missing skill. This session is specially designed for learners who don't just want theoretical EV knowledge but want industry relevant practical skills that actually matter on the ground. Today, we are truly privileged to have with us Mr. Romesh Gupta, sir, founder and MD of Yanti, and a seasoned professional with a deep expertise in EV system, battery behavior, and real world diagnostics. What makes today's session special is that Sir doesn't just talk about what batteries are, he talks about how they feel, they tested, and how engineers are expected to diagnose them in a real industry scenario. So, learners, I strongly encourage you keep your notebook steady, note down your questions, and think like an EV professional while attending this session. Before we hand it over to Sir, a small request everyone, please make sure you fill out the attendance form, share in the chat. This will help us to record your participation and ensure you receive your e-certificates and session updates. So without taking so much time, let's dive straight into the underrated yet powerful EV skill. Learners, please put your hands together virtually, of course, for Mr. Romesh Gupta, sir, as he takes us through EV battery diagnostics. Over to you, sir.
All right, good evening. Uh, I hope the presentation screen is visible. Uh, all right. Okay. And am I properly audible also? All right. It
Yes,
seems
sir.
like everything is fine. So, so we'll start with today's section. Thank you everyone for joining this session. And it's good that EV battery diagnostics is now coming mainstream when we are talking about electric vehicles. So before we launch into this session, I would want to like caution everybody that EV batteries are a powerful energy storage systems. When we're talking about two-wheelers, we normally deal with voltages which are in the range of maximum 84 volt. But as you move up the chain, especially in four-wheelers and buses, we are dealing with high voltage battery packs. So any battery diagnostics should be done with proper care and proper safety because these are DC systems, high voltage systems. So you need to be properly trained to actually handle it. And what I would want to do is today I would want to like do this for half an hour or maybe 40-45 minutes, and then I would want you to participate and ask questions either live or by text so that you I understand what you're looking for and this can become an interactive session. uh, so we are beginning with this 1 hour session. So as was introduced, now when we're talking about electric vehicles, we normally talk about uh, the vehicles, two-wheeler, three-wheeler, four-wheeler, or we talk about new batteries, chemistries, NMC, LFP, LTO, and all those things. We even talk about BMS. We talk about uh, EV motors, the powertrain. But one of the important aspect of EV is EV batteries are a complex electrochemical systems. A battery pack is made up of sometimes hundreds and in bigger vehicles, thousands of cells. So to properly diagnose a problem in a EV pack, uh, each of you should be very, very thorough about the anatomy of the cell. Now, can you like virtually tell me how many of you exactly know what is the nominal voltage of a lithium ion pack, NMC? Anybody can answer this so that I know that we are getting a proper response. I'm
50%
asking
of the
about
volt, 3.3, 3.4 volt.
uh, now NMC. When you're talking about NMC, the exact nominal voltage of the NMC cell is 3.6 volt or 3.7 volt. 3.3 and 3.4 is not correct. Either it is 3.6 or 3.7 volt. So these are the actually the basics which will help you build your skills in diagnostics. So you have to be very thorough about at least if you want to take a note, NMC cell, which is lithium ion, normally called. Then the second chemistry is LFP, which is lithium pyrophosphate. And the third chemistry, although less used, but it is also in the reckoning, is LTO, lithium titanate. And as this slide shows, obviously why we should care about diagnostics, because EV batteries are approximately 40 to 45% of the vehicle cost. And if batteries are not, uh, batteries have a glitch or they're not working properly, or they come under and you might have to actually do a replacement of the pack, then it becomes a very, very critical and it's difficult for a customer to actually afford a new battery pack if the existing pack does not work or it is out of warranty. So this subject is extremely important, especially in a country like India where the the cells are still not being made. They are still being imported from China. So, and the weather in the country is still tropical, heat, rains, roads are flooded. There are so many factors which are actually very unique to our country. And maybe in some other countries, these issues might not be there, but we have a very, very harsh condition in which these EV batteries are used. So diagnostic is an absolute essential skill based on which only we can have a robust and strong traction in electric vehicles in the country.
Sir, really sorry to disturb you, but your screen, your presentation is not visible to us.
Is it? Let me just see if that's what's the problem. Mm,
Yes, sir, it's visible now. Thank you.
okay, fine. All right. I'm sorry if it was not visible. It's visible now, right?
Yes, sir.
So as we are moving forward, now this slide obviously is talking about the skill gap. Obviously, when you're going into any kind of EV course, which is trying to introduce you to the subject, they would talk about the fundamentals. But I would still reckon that those fundamentals are extremely important for you to develop skills in diagnostics. Like I just now asked a question about battery chemistry. Now, unless and until you know what is the nominal voltage of the pack of a cell, you would be facing a difficulty in actually diagnosing the problem. I'll give you an example. Uh, Suppose we are talking about a two-wheeler battery pack, and the nominal voltage of the pack is 48 volt. Now you should be able to immediately understand how many series are actually involved in this battery pack. If you know your answer properly, you would just divide 48 volt by 3.6 and you would arrive at the number of strings which are there. So how did we arrive at it? Because we knew the fundamentals. Because if your battery pack, suppose the nominal voltage is 48, and normally the lower cutoff of these battery packs are around 3 volt. And assume a pack comes to you and it is showing 30 volt. Now, if you know that your lower cutoff is say 39 volt and your battery pack is at 30 volt, then you would immediately understand that something is missing. Either some lines are not properly behaving, or the BMS is creating a problem and the output voltage is not there. So this is again linked to what is there in the fundamentals. So this was one case I told you, where straight away the having a proper knowledge of the voltages would give you an idea about the health of the pack. I will just elaborate. Let's take a case of LFP pack. Now, this is called lithium ferrophosphate. Now, because of the uh, heat and the previous safety records, more and more companies are shifting towards lithium ferrophosphate chemistry, because in terms of safety, it is better than the NMC chemistry. Now let's take the case of LFP. Now suppose somebody says, okay, let me go from NMC. I would want to use an LFP. Now, would that mean that the number of strings will remain same? Anybody can give a feedback. Suppose we switch from NMC to LFP and we still want to use 48 volt. Can somebody tell how many strings are involved there?
The configuration will be changed, sir.
Yeah, exactly. So, but can you guess how many strings would be involved? Like in NMC, I told you 13 strings are involved. Now, suppose you want to do it in LFP, would 13 strings be involved, or you would need more number of strings to
It
arrive
will
at
be
48?
increased, sir.
More,
Can
sir.
yeah, somebody has told, yeah, 15 series is appropriate. Like you would need 15 series. So similar skills are used. Now, if you know the nominal voltage of the LFP pack, which is LFP cell, which is 3.2 volt, and if you multiply by 15, you will arrive at 48 volt. So in this case, again, just having a proper knowledge of the nominal voltage of the cell and the lower cutoff voltage of this cell, when the battery comes to you, you can at least make a judgment immediately whether this battery pack is deep discharge or it is not deep discharge. Because when a battery is presented to you, there may be several scenarios, and one of the scenario is the battery might have gone into a deep discharge, and in that case you would see a voltage which is lower than the lower cutoff voltage of that particular chemistry. Like in NMC chemistry, the lower cutoff normally is 3 volt. But when you talk about LFP, the lower cutoff voltage would be in the range of 2.7 to 2.8 volt. So having this knowledge is extremely crucial for you to actually have a proper understanding and diagnosing of the battery pack. Uh, if anybody has a question, I would be happy to take it, and then we can move forward.
Sir, is this the case for two-wheeler or four-wheeler?
Yeah, I'm just giving you an example of two-wheeler. And as I told you, in two-wheeler, there are normally three kinds of voltages which are used: 48 volt, 60 volt, and 72 volt. These are the nominal voltages. So I'm giving you an example, trying to explain you how voltages are important. But these fundamentals are even relevant for when you talk about bigger vehicles, four-wheelers, or maybe even trucks. So there we would actually want to work with higher voltages. Now, can anybody make a guess why when we are why we want to work on higher voltages when we are talking about four-wheelers. Why can't we work at 48 volt or 60 volt or 72 volt? Why do we prefer a higher voltage? Any guess?
First point
So
will be the
no,
load,
sir.
sir.
Because of the high range, sir, proper range and
I think Swaraj has answered, which is close to the correct point. When we're talking about high voltage, or as Ohm's law is, voltage is equal to current multiplied by resistance. So when you deal with high voltage, the the amount of current required will be lesser. So your vehicle will not require heavy cables. Now, if you trying to do the same work at 48 volt and the current required is high, your wiring and your subsystems would have to be very heavy. So that is why when you're talking about bigger vehicles, we want to deal with higher voltages. So is this point clear?
Sir, could you please repeat, sir?
Yeah. So actually, what like SETI Rakesh has also pointed out correctly. Uh, if you know your Ohm's law, Ohm's law is voltage is equal to current into resistance. So when we are talking about, say, let's take R is equal to V by I. As your voltages are more, your current would be lesser in the whole system. And this has actually a huge economic impact on the cost of the vehicle. If you are doing this with a lesser voltage, the cost of your cables, wires, connectors, fuses would be pretty high. So that is why we want to actually deal in high voltages when we are talking about bigger applications like cars, trucks, buses. Yeah, Parvez Qureshi has a question. Can you repeat what you're trying to ask? Can you elaborate? Okay, all right. So if you want to ask a question, we can take it after some time. All right. Uh, just give me a second. I think I'm having some. Is my
hello.
screen still visible? Are you able to
Yes,
see my
sir.
presentation?
Visible, sir. Visible, sir.
Visual.
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine. All right. So here, as I told you, academics do focus on fundamentals, uh, but those fundamentals actually help you make your diagnostic skills more relevant. Now, this we have already discussed. Because of the high value of battery in an electric vehicle, it is actually very crucial for us to actually preserve the value of the battery. And for a country like India, where we don't produce lithium, we import lithium from China. Even cells are not manufactured here. We only assemble the battery packs. Uh, so this is again like a scenario of petroleum, where we import 80 to 90% of our petroleum. So since we are dependent on other countries, it is extremely important for us to actually maximize the life of the EV battery. It is not in our favor that uh, because of the bad diagnostics, we just scrap the batteries prematurely. This is one of the most important point why diagnostics is extremely important. But some like viewers or listeners might question that if it is so relevant, why this is not so talked about? Why we are not talking about diagnostic? We are only talking about some launches and other things. In my view, in my assessment, since diagnostics is actually a little bit complex and it is not a very straightforward, it's not selling any story about EV and anything. So that is why it is talked less. But if you talk about the impact of diagnostics and revival, it is huge because most EV OEMs, the biggest worry for them is would their battery survive the warranty period? And normally in two-wheeler, the warranty period is around 3 years and sometimes 4 years. In four-wheeler, it is around 8 years. So till your warranty is executed, although OEMs have made a sale, they cannot sit and relax that now no uh, cost will be incurred on that particular sale. And I think this is the main reason why many EV OEMs are not able to actually are not very like so profitable as compared to petrol vehicles is because this diagnostic layer is not very mature. So in many cases, they have to actually replace a pack which is not working properly with a brand new pack. And that actually increases their cost and reduces the profit, which is very evident. So here we are getting into the nitty-gritties of battery failure. Like when a battery fails, what are the different scenarios which might come up? So one of the scenario which is very common is that there is an imbalance in the battery pack. Now, if you recall my previous example of a 48-volt battery pack which is having 13 strings. So this cell imbalance is actually telling us, are those strings which are there in the battery pack, are they in sync? Are they in sync? Are they totally in sync? And now, if those battery packs are not in synchronization, you would see different voltages on different strings. Like if you talk about NMC, and let's say the pack is just at the nominal voltage, which is 48 volt. Now you would want to see all 13 strings at 3.6 volt because battery pack works as a unit and you need to have all voltages in synchronization. Now this is the first problem that is normally encountered, that strings are actually at different voltages. So for example, if you have a battery pack which is showing 48 volt, you would expect that every voltage should be on 3.6. But what you can find is one of the string may be at 4 volt and maybe one of the string can be at 3 volt. Now, if you have this kind of imbalance in the battery pack, so when the battery pack would be used or to deliver the power to the vehicle, the string which is at a lower volt will face more load as compared to the two other strings. And if this is allowed to continue, the string which is at the lower voltage would ultimately fail and your vehicle will stop working because battery there is certain tolerance which is allowed in the imbalance and BMS is there to detect it. After a certain threshold is reached, the BMS just shuts off the power to the vehicle. So this is what is meant by cell imbalance. Now the other factor or the other feature that might show up when you are diagnosing a battery pack is very critical. This is the thermal behavior of every cell. Now assume we just go back to our previous example of a 48-volt pack, and let's say the AH is 26 AH. So if you are using a cell which is having a per cell AH is 2.6, so here we are dealing with 13 series 10 parallel pack. So the total number of cells are 130 here. Now cells are placed very close to each other in a battery pack, and if there is any cell which is now overheating, that's actually a big danger for the battery as well as for the user of that vehicle, because that one cell, if it breaches a certain temperature, then it might lead to self ignition, and that can actually lead to a fire, and the battery pack will fail. So the designers, companies like us, and whosoever is closely linked to EV batteries, uh, place a huge importance on this anomaly. If we find that a cell or a string is overheating, we have to immediately stop that process, and we have to investigate very closely why this is happening. So this is the second factor which normally shows up. The third factor, which is I think SOC and SOH mismatch, is basically a lot of confusion in the industry, where state of charge is normally linked to state of health. Now both of these things are actually entirely different. Now state of charge would only show you the voltages of the pack or the voltages of the string, but SOH is actually meant to indicate how much energy the cell is or the pack is able to hold. So many a times in the industry, I have seen people talking to us and telling us, so we are finding that the cell voltage is good, but our bike is after 10 kilometer, it doesn't run. So what they are telling is their SOC is so much, and they are actually assuming SOC means the health of the pack, and so they are confused. If the voltages are correct, why the vehicle is not running, why it is actually stopping after 20 minutes. So that's an anomaly that shows that battery pack has some problem inside, and that is why it is not able to hold the complete charge, and that creates a confusion between SOC and SOI. But these are two entirely different things. SOC just shows how much voltages the pack is, and SOH shows the potential, the amount of energy that this pack is able to hold. Now the fourth point, which is voltage drift, it is actually related to cell imbalance only. Voltage drift is the same thing, said differently. Cell imbalance and voltage drift are actually, it's the same thing. Now the last and the final issue that can be encountered, because all of these issues that we have spoken just now is actually we are talking to the cells directly. But the last point is the BMS. Now BMS, the full form of BMS, battery management system. So this is actually an electronic device which is used in the battery pack, and the main role of this device is to actually protect the battery and the user of the battery. So it would be monitoring the cell imbalance. It would be monitoring the thermal behavior of the pack. So practically what you would find with these BMS are NTCs. So these are NTCs is a kind of sensor which actually you put it just over the cell, and you might have several of these NTCs in a big pack, and each of these NTC would be is their property is such that if the temperature changes, their resistance change, and since it becomes an electric signal, then BMS can actually sense whether the temperature is going out of limits or not, And if it is going out of limit, BMS would actually stop if the anomaly is catastrophic, or BMS would give you some alarm telling you to look into certain aspect of it. And normally, how do you see those BMS alerts? Is normally every BMS would have a software which actually shows you the parameters. So when you hook up your BMS with the software, so on the computer you can see like different things, and several BMS also gives you an alert. Like there can be a complete log. Sometimes if the battery is having too many issues, so you might see maybe up to 10 or 12 false like BMS alerts. And the battery would not work unless and until all those alerts are addressed. So, so BMS is actually there to guide you. But I would want to tell you, BMS is only a, a watchman. If you think about an analogy, so BMS is not going to diagnose the problem of the pack, but BMS is actually designed to not allow any abnormal behavior of the pack. So that's the reason diagnostics become important, because BMS is like an open and shut case, but it would not tell you that, say, you see that ninth number cell, or you see why the imbalance is coming. So all of that interpretation has to be done uh, by by somebody who is actually handling the batteries. So that is why diagnostics still remain relevant, because BMS is not designed to give you all the different abnormalities that you might face when you're using or when you're diagnosing a EV battery. So what is the now why all of this is important? Because if we just treat it as diagnostics is also one of the part of the EV ecosystem, then it becomes like one more activity. It is actually important because when you're selling an EV, you're telling your user that now when you adopt this EV, your operating cost is going to come down dramatically. Roughly, if you compare it with a petrol vehicle, your operating cost would be in the zone of 20 to 30%. So when you're selling a EV, you're promising that you're going to save 70% on the fuel cost. Now, the premise of that promise is that battery will work uh, normally during those 3 or 4 years when the warranty is there. And of course, when we talk to the industry, we tell them warranty is actually bare minimum. You should actually give you twice or thrice the life. If you give the warranty for 4 years, your battery should work for 8 years. So EV adoption fails if the premise fails. Like if your battery is not working properly, then you cannot make a saving. Then you might actually have to go back and use a petrol vehicle. So this is extremely relevant for anybody who is using an EV, or anybody who is actually related to EVs in terms of diagnostics, revival, repair. So here what you're trying to elaborate is that yes, there is a skill gap between what we see in the industry, and that skill gap has basically arisen because when you're making a battery pack, the pack might behave absolutely normally in terms of its performance, because any good manufacturer would actually check a pack for multiple times. They would not just release a pack. But the critical parameter or the factor that come into the picture is when that same pack goes in the field and it is being used by the user on real Indian roads in conditions like traffic, frequent braking, acceleration. You have two people sitting on the vehicles with some load. So when it gets into the real world, the performance is not linear. It becomes a non-linear performance because the factors are non-linear. So that is why it's difficult for somebody who has just studied about batteries to immediately understand the diagnosis or the problem of the battery, because these two are actually, although it's the same battery pack that we are seeing, but when you see from the point of view of diagnosis after it is used, the pack looks completely different. And what has happened, like right now we are not talking about theory because I'm just trying to tell you the practical things. So theory without practice is obviously will not be very useful. And I would also want to tell you that if you're going into diagnostic, think of it as a long term, long duration scaling. It will not come in one day. And if you are determined to actually make your mark in this field, then you have to actually spend a lot of time. And this skill is time dependent also. And it is also dependent on how many different kinds of battery packs you are seeing every day or over a month. Right now, because we have a certain scale, we might see a battery pack which we have never seen before. So if you haven't, if you neither had produced that pack and you're seeing it for the first time, so you have to actually analyze the health of the pack by first principle, knowing the voltage profile of the cell, its internal resistance, its temperature, its behavior under load when you are putting a load on the cells. So you have to actually use fundamentals, and prior experience helps you in actually analyzing a new configuration because there is no standardization of battery packs. Anyone can design an NMC, LFP. They can choose a design and a form. Government just says that you come and actually get your pack verified by us, whether it is safe or not. But they are not telling you that you have to actually make the exactly same pack. So there are a lot of variations of pack, variations in design, variations in placing the cell in the pack, different cooling systems, different BMS, different softwares. So it has a multiple layers of sometimes it is so proprietary that you cannot even see the signals, the problem on the BMS because they are password protected. So this is also an important thing. Now, safety risk, as I started with the point about safety. Safety is actually extremely important, and many a times, many companies don't want to do diagnostic and revival because they feel that their technicians are not so equipped or so alert about what may go wrong, and those safety risks also discourages uh, like getting into diagnostic and revival. But I can tell you from our experience, you should always have safety first mindset. Any diagnosis, revival, repair, refurbishment uh, comes afterwards. So you have to actually thoroughly check the pack and see all the risk factors like divergence of voltage, temperature, your behavior of strings under load. So you have to be actually on your toes all the time. So this is also one of the factor which is there. But if you let's talk about a surgeon who is doing a surgery, like he's opening up a patient's heart. Is it risky? Yes. But is it necessary? The answer might be yes, because that's the only way you can save the person. So in the same way, it is necessary also. But again, as surgeons are trained for years, the persons who are handling the battery packs have to make sure that whatever they do it safely, and and because any wrong move can actually be hazardous and can cause fire. So this is also one of the factor which is actually keeping away the OEMs for getting into revival and refurbishment. But in any case, if the OEMs don't handle, somebody else will handle. The recyclers might handle or somebody else. So everybody has to be cautious. It's not that if you just say that there is a safety risk, you will not do it. You have to have a mindset of safety first, and then you should be attempting diagnostics and revival. So here, basically, this slide shows the breadth of options that that any student can get. So basically, you can get into an OEM ecosystem. You can get into EV OEM, or you can get along with a battery OEM. You can become part of fleet operators, because fleet operators ROI is tied up to the battery performance. You might be using, say, Blinkit, or I'm just giving you a relatable example. Now, if the battery pack is not behaving properly, the rider might not be able to actually deliver the goods on time, or he might not be able to make uh, like as many trips as are needed in a day. Uh, so that also becomes an issue. Authorized service centers, yes. Uh, like as and when as the EV is going to scale, uh, independent service centers will come up, and those independent service centers would need people who are actually good at the fundamentals of battery pack, and also are able to diagnose the issues. Second life companies, there are few, but more will be coming up in coming years, and there be uh, you may have to actually check the battery pack for whether it is capable for second life or not. And normally, when you're talking about second life, we're talking about first life is traction, which is electric mobility. Second life would be storage. So the battery pack can go into inverter, or it can be used as a storage for your solar plant in the home, or there can be other miscellaneous uses. And yes, insurance guys also would need these skills, because now when a claim is made, and especially a claim on the battery is made, if the diagnosis is incomplete and the OEM is not giving you the proper data, then many a times insurers are forced to actually replace the entire battery pack, and that is actually costly for them. So these skills are relevant for insurance companies as well. So as we had discussed previously, uh, when we're talking about battery diagnostics, we actually talk about reading BMS data, but here again, there the caveat is not every battery would have a BMS which will allow you to read the data. So this is again a problem. Uh, this is only applicable when you have a software, or you're working inside an EV ecosystem. But this data is not readily available. Most data is actually locked. So BMS data might not be sufficient for you to do the diagnosis. So the other way, as we have discussed already, SOC, SOH analysis, thermal behavior, cell level isolation, safety decisions. So these are all first principles where even if the BMS data is not available, you can actually do all of these tests. But again, it has to be done with proper caution, because you are not, you should not bypass the. So what we talked about, I think we have discussed, but we can just quickly go through. Uh, in colleges, you normally don't have a battery pack. Again, sometimes it's because of the safety, or sometimes uh, in India, practical skills are not taught in the colleges. So you might not have seen a battery pack, but you would have got a certificate for doing a program in EV battery. So that is a skill gap, or the practicalities. Obviously, no field failure data is a very genuine point, because field failure data there is no data bank where all the field failure data is getting noted. Now, if it is happening inside an EV ecosystem, they keep it it's a very highly proprietary knowledge, which is not shared with outsiders. So again, this is a genuine problem, that no field failure data is available. No exposure to aging. Obviously, when you are, even suppose you make a new pack, but you would not know how the pack will behave when it is used. So aging here means, after the pack is used, we tell that we like notify the age of the pack by aging, like how many cycles it has done. Now, for example, let's put the data here. NMC pack would have a cycles of around 700 to 800 cycles. Now, as a student, you wouldn't get a pack which is actually aging every day, or you would get a pack from the field which has failed, and then you have to diagnose it. So obviously the exposure is missing. And diagnostic tools, so of course we can talk about BMS readers, thermal imaging equipments for checking the thermal runaway or the abnormality in the cell, and standard diagnostics. So again, this area is not very open and shut case. If you are presented a BMS which is not giving you the information as it is logged, uh, so at the moment nothing much can be done about it, except to use your first principles and trying to figure out the problem of the pack. Now, again, this point is highlighting the repercussion. If there is a wrong diagnosis, what could happen? The first point is what we have seen very frequently is battery is replaced, especially with EV OEMs, because their reputation lies in the previous customers who are satisfied. So if there is a long list of customers which are having a problem, and from the market, there is a pressure to actually make those vehicles run again, because now they are dependent on a battery. And if the battery is actually not working, the vehicle is stuck. So there are sometimes market compulsions which actually forces OEMs to replace the battery instead of diagnosing and repairing it, because in the EV ecosystem, it is also understood that this is a complex thing, and the impression right now is it is a time-taking activity, and if you have market compulsions, just replace the pack and move on. So it's actually in the long run nobody can sustain it, but in the short term, this is what happens in the industry. High warranty cost. Obviously, if you're selling let's say if Tata Motors sells a car giving 8-year warranty, and within the warranty period, if suppose the battery is changed twice, then do you think any OEM is going to make money out of it? So this is actually directly critical for these manufacturers to have diagnostic skills, so that they should not be forced to actually replace the packs. Now, safety incidents this is not negotiable, non-negotiable. This should come always as a primary point whenever you are dealing with battery packs. Customer dissatisfaction. Now, you should understand this point in a way that customer thinks that the performance in the deterioration of performance in the pack is because the pack is having a problem. and the OEM side would actually think, or their motivation would be to actually see if the customer has done any mistake. So both the sides are right on their own part, but this tussle basically happens because diagnosis and revival is a slow process. It is thought that it is a slow process because the skills are not developed. So both the sides would want to maximize their advantage. Customer would want a full replacement, and the OEM would want to drag it and maybe sometimes tell the customer that the fault is yours. And obviously, this would, if this tussle happens, the customer might be dissatisfied. So this is something which actually affects the market or the uptake of the electric vehicles in the market. So this slide is actually Yanti, me as a founder, we started talking about it many years ago when we saw the field failures during our previous endeavor in electric vehicles. So it's heartening to see that diagnostic is now coming to the center stage, and but there are different elements to it. Now, what we have generally spoken right now is the packs which have failed and which came to us for diagnosis. But there are companies, many companies which are working on it, where they're saying that with the use of artificial intelligence, they would be able to predict the failure before it happens. So this technology is still in initial stages. It has not matured. But yes, I know many companies which are actually trying to use AI and predict the failure. But the point is, even if the diagnosis is right, the battery would still require a fix, and a diagnosis on the battery pack would also be needed. You can just create a scenario like if a doctor asks you to take an X-ray, but you would still want to physically examine even if the X-ray says something. So it's just like that predictive thing. Repair and revival, of course, if you can save, say, a pack which would have cost 3 lakh or 4 lakh by spending a small amount of money, so it's actually win-win for the customer as well as the manufacturer. Second life validation also requires a good knowledge of diagnostic, because at that stage you have to actually properly assess whether this battery pack can go to second life or it has got deteriorated that it should actually directly go to the recycler. Analytics, yes, analytics is important, and as more and more electrification will happen, a lot of data, EVs by their own design, most modern EVs generate a lot of data, and a lot of data is actually coming to EV OEMs. At the moment, what I see is that data, the amount of data is so much that probably many OEMs are not able to diagnose it, but as and when our computing power is going to increase, this factor will also come into the picture, where based on the data generated by the EV, the predictions or the preventive maintenance can be done, the EV batteries. So who are the candidates who should be getting into it? Electrical and electronics. Obviously, when we're talking about voltage, current, and when we're talking about BMS, it's all electronics. So electrical and electronics engineers have a bright future if they want to pursue this line. Mechanical engineers can also come into the picture. In fact, I'm also a mechanical engineer, but I pivoted into this field. So even mechanical guys, if they put their mind into this subject, they can learn the craft. Service and maintenance professionals, yes, I'm seeing this trend where lots of mechanics who are into ICE, they want to upskill themselves so that they can also do electric. Some have actually already done it, but the point is, the problem I see is there's a formal ecosystem is not there where this transition can happen. So it's slowly happening, but if there is a formal infrastructure, it may happen quickly also. EV startup teams, yes, if anybody who is actually into battery as a service or something in those domains, so they would also want to actually have these skills. So understanding BMS, real data analytics, safety awareness, logistics, field ready mindset. Now all these are the skills which are actually relevant for any profession that you choose, and they are actually quite relevant here. Uh, so this actually is about generic course. Yeah, please, if somebody has a question, because now we are running out of time. So I think the critical part of the presentation has already been told. Now, for last 4 or 5 minutes, we can talk about your questions or any clarification.
Hello, this is Rahul Patil. I have concerns regarding the EV analytics. For remote monitoring system, are we using telematics for this?
See, any EV, like there are devices called IoT devices, which are there on the battery pack. So those devices, although they don't give you entire battery parameter, but yes, they are able to give you some basic parameters like state of charge, the current, and the temperature. But it is not going to diagnose the problem in the battery pack, but some data is coming through IoT devices.
The predictive analysis can be done, right?
Predictive analysis is actually, again, you have to have a rich data to do a proper prediction. As of now, the entire data of battery pack is actually not coming to you. It may go to the OEM, but it doesn't come to a customer. So it is controlled, and probably OEMs can do that. But as I told you, the amount of data is so huge, and there is data latency. Now all these batteries are CAN enabled. They are actually broadcasting the data in milliseconds. Like in 1 second, you can have thousands of data logs. So it's a huge data which is coming up. So predictive analytics is coming up as a field, but it has not matured completely. Anyone else?
So battery pack construction is covers under SAE norms or individual manufacturer specifications?
No, there are certain standards like AIS 156, and some standards are there. So manufacturers have to meet those safety standards, but not. I think the link has expired.
It will comes under SAE or any other specific norms, sir, for battery pack? Because
No, there are. There are
automotive comes under SAE.
yes,
So that
battery
I'm
packs. Battery packs have got their own guidelines,
okay.
and they are being done by ARI. Or so you have to go and actually meet those safety criteria. There is a formal legislation which is monitoring the safety of the pack, and you have to actually qualify those standards for you to actually sell those battery packs or use them in the electric vehicles.
Okay, sir. For DTCs, DTCs will be common for every battery pack. Most of the DTCs will be common, or it will depends upon manufacturer. They will create specific DTCs, sir.
Okay, DTC. No, they are actually specific. They are, although all battery packs fundamentally are same, but
Yes.
when they are transmitting the data, they will have their own proprietary language, which outsiders cannot actually see and understand. So here there is no uniformity. Everybody would have their own DTC files.
Because we are in IC engines, we have the same technology to every brand. So if any
Mm.
problems occur, the same DTC will come. Common DTCs we are telling that, like that, common DTCs are available in battery pack also, or every manufacturer getting individual DTCs like that, sir. You are
At
telling
the
that
moment, at
uh,
the moment it is all individual. There's no
only
commonality.
individual. Okay, okay, sir. Understand. Thank you, sir.
All right. So just one or 2 minutes, last one or two questions, and then we will finish the session.
So that it's you're telling that it's all individual. So the diagnostic process will be differ from manufacturer to manufacturer. The base diagnostic procedure only remaining same. When we go in-depth diagnosis, it will differ manufacturer to manufacturer. It will be
Yes.
like that. Huh?
Yes. Currently, it is going to differ. So
Uh,
if you have a different BMS,
mm,
and so if the proprietary logs are logged, so you would actually, if you get into an EV OEM ecosystem, you would
mm,
then use those softwares to analyze the problem. But if you are outside that ecosystem, it's doable, but it's not easy to immediately interpret the problems of the pack by the signals which are coming from BMS.
okay.
Sir, I have a question. So, what do you think the role of digital twins in battery management systems and battery packs is going to be in diagnosis of such issues? How big of a role and impact can smart BMSs play in it?
See, digital twin is a concept which is now being like marketed as a next big thing. But again, digital twins would still be using the same proprietary logs which are there for an OEM. For example, let's talk about TVS. Now, a battery which is running in the vehicle has a digital twin in the cloud, and all the parameters which are getting recorded at the battery pack, they are again being recorded in the digital twin. But again, you don't have a direct access to actually find out the parameters. You will still need to have a permission to use that data. So I hope this is the point which
Thank
is
you, sir.
there.
Thank you, sir.
All right. So thank you so much for joining, and I hope you've got some understanding of diagnostics, and I hope you guys have a bright future. All right. Thank you so much. Bye bye.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. That was a truly an insightful session. A big thank you to Mr. Romesh Gupta, sir, for sharing such practical, industry-driven insights on EV battery diagnostics. So, the way you explain real world challenges, diagnostic thinking, and industry expectation has definitely helped learners understand where they need to focus to grow in the EV domain. Learners, I hope today's session gave you at least one new learning and one new motivation to upgrade your skills. Before we wrap up, please make sure you have filled the attendance form to receive the e-certificates and it will be shared soon. Stay connected with DIY Guru for more live industry sessions like this. We would love to hear from you. What was your key takeaways from today? What topic would you like to cover next? Okay. Thank you once again for your time and active participation. This is Aditi from DIY Guru signing off. Have a great evening and keep powering your EV journey. If anyone having any doubts or a query or wanted to know more about DIY Guru programs, so I'm sharing contact details. You can reach out to us. Thank you so much. Have a great evening ahead.